What about the womb? Did anybody spend about 9 months in their mother's womb? Did you? Yeah, all of you did. Now, the womb is a safe place for a baby to grow and develop. The world outside can be scary and dangerous, but inside the womb, it's warm and cozy, and it's full of nutrients for your growing body. But sometimes all of that can change in an instant. Your first traumatic moments in your life actually happen in the womb. And it can have serious consequences for your health as an adult. Now, as the mother's body is providing the care to the child, any stress the mother experiences, which is called maternal stress, can transfer to the child. And if the stress is really bad, then it can cause the child trauma. Wow. So where are my mums? Did you have any accidents or incidents or major life events during your pregnancy? Were you sick? Most women fall sick. I've got friends who spent 9 months of their pregnancy laying down on their back. Do you think that would be traumatic for a woman? Ninny came close to miscarriage 3 times. Do you think that's traumatic for the baby? Ninny was in labour for 24 hours and then they performed an emergency C-section. She couldn't dilate more than 1.5 centimetres and Nikita was trying to come out through the birth canal and she was stuck. Would that be traumatic for the baby? Say yes, absolutely. So they rushed Ninny in for an emergency C-section because they thought there was a good chance that Nikita might die in the birthing process. And they even thought that Ninny might die during giving birth. Would that be traumatic for mother and child? Yes. Do you think the child's consciously aware of it? But do you think the body remembers this unconsciously? Yes, because everything the mother goes through, the child also goes through. But what's confusing for a lot of you, it's out of your conscious awareness. Now let's talk about the Gestalt. A Gestalt is a term that comes from psychology, and it's a collection of memories that are linked together in our brain. And some psychologists believe that as we get older, our reactions and behaviour in the present are reactions to a Gestalt. And they say the present plays very little part in our behaviour. Now, the Gestalt theory of memory is a way of understanding what happens when you store memories. It says that our memories are arranged in a Gestalt, which means they're simply linked together like a chain. Now, the gestalting of memory often takes place around certain subjects. For example, I remember it was 2018. 2018, I'd flown from Taiwan and I went to Melbourne. And I was walking down the street and all of a sudden I got a smell of a perfume. And within a split second, I thought about a girlfriend that I had when I was 20 years of age. Has that happened to you before? Somebody says something, you see something, you smell something, you taste something, and all of a sudden it transports you back to a period of time. I went back like 20 years of my life in a split second and I thought about an ex-girlfriend because of a certain scent. And so when we store our memories in our mind, we're going to have chains of memories. So when you think about your current girlfriend or your wife or your boyfriend or your husband, then you might have other memories that are related to other people and they start to get linked together. And what happens sometimes is one memory from one relationship now gets mixed in with a relationship from another, or a memory from another relationship. Is that making sense? Now, the impact on gestalting is that when we try to access a gestalt which is a chain of memories, it will actually bring up what's called a constructed memory. So I want you to think about this. What did you have for dinner last night? What did you have for dinner on Thursday night? What did you have for dinner on Monday night? What did you have for dinner on Saturday last week? What did you have for dinner on the 15th of June? Probably pretty tough to remember, right? But you know you ate, correct? You know you would have had dinner. But why can't I think of it? It's because those events really had no meaning. You eat 3 times a day on average, correct? You probably forget what you had for breakfast because it's just meaningless. It's just a meal. But think about the meal that you ate on the night of your wedding. Oh, I can remember that one. Think about the meal that you ate at your best friend's wedding. I can remember that. Why do we remember that? Because it has meaning. It has meaning. But we eat probably 900 times a year, 365 times a year, times 3. We probably eat 1,000 times. And I know you've been snacking. You're probably eating 1,000 times a year. But most of the time we just forget about it, correct? And that's what happens with the Gestalt. So when we try to think, well, what did I actually eat that night? It just brings up a collection of different memories. And whatever you imagine is true for you because your unconscious mind is symbolic. And symbolic means something more than literal and less than abstract. But as long as your mind understands, yes, that means food, that's all you need to worry about. Does it make sense? Excellent. So let's have a look at these time periods. People are not consciously aware of the root cause of their negative emotions. They're often more aware of significant events that are closer in time to now. So you will most likely remember the argument that you had with your husband that you had last night. If you had an argument with your husband or your wife or your spouse yesterday, you'll most likely remember it. But you won't consciously recall the arguments that your parents were having when you were in your mother's womb. Does it make sense? Did I argue with my wife when she was pregnant? Absolutely, 100%. She'd just lost her job. She had to move from Dubai back to Taiwan. I wasn't going to see her for 6 months. We had to get rid of the house we had in Taiwan. We had to sell all the furniture, and I had to move and leave my job. Do you think there was arguments during that time? Do you think there was a lot of stress during that time? Yes or no? Absolutely. Now, if my wife was stressed, which she would have been, do you think the baby is going to remember these incidents consciously? Not consciously. Unconsciously, the mind will remember, but the child won't have conscious awareness of it. So you might remember the argument you had with your spouse yesterday, but you won't be consciously aware of the argument that took place when you were in your mother's womb, which was the root cause. Does that make sense? Excellent. Now, our job as timeline therapy practitioners is to help the client to get to the root cause. The root cause is the first event that created the Gestalt or the chain of memories. It's the first event of anger, the first event of sadness, or the first event of fear. And we do that so we can release it and we can make those events rational. Now, there's a few different time periods. First of all, we have what's called the imprint period. Let's have a look at this one here. These are the time periods here. We have the imprint period. There's always a first event. And the first events and the root causes are always in the first 7 years of our life. However, most of the time, we're not conscious of those. We're more conscious of the significant emotional events that have happened from about age 7 up to present time. So there's 3 time periods. 0 to 7, which is the imprint period, 7 to 14, which is the modelling period, and age 14 to 21, which is the socialisation period. Most people are aware of the significant emotional events that you can see at the top there, but most people are not consciously aware of the root cause. In timeline therapy, we are concerned and focused on getting to the root cause. So let's explore these.